We're in our last and final installment of our beer making series. This is part 3, which goes to the bottling. Before I got started, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to handle your bottles. When you pour your beer and when you're done drinking it, there's always a little bit of sediment that's left at the bottom. This is the yeast and some of the trub and some of that settles out in the bottom. So what you want to do is wash and clean your bottles prior to getting them ready for your next bottling round. A couple things that I like to use is I've got a jet washer, and just merely get the rest of that out, clean your bottle out, get all that excess that was out of there, and then I have a sanitizer pump, and I just keep my sanitizer in there, give it 3 or 4 pushes, and sanitize my bottle. Then I would just put this into a cardboard storage case that I have. I've got a couple cases of beer because I recycle my bottles. And one of the things I recommend is you don't use these more than 3 times. Then it's time to take it into a glass recycler or somebody and then recycle your bottles. What I've done is I've prepared here today is my bottles for my wash in preparation to getting ready. One thing you don't want to do is use a commercial dish cleaner on that. It'll leave a residue in your beer and it'll end up killing the foam and the head and your carbonation in your beer. So you don't want to use that commercial dish soap. What I use basically is the same thing we have in our sanitizer here. It's just a Brewer's Edge sanitizer that I get from Williams Brewing. It's a non-oxidizing thing, and basically they recommend a teaspoon to a gallon. I just put a teaspoon in my dishwasher. Close it up, and set it on a good sanitizing wash. A couple things will happen here when you do that is it'll get your bottles sanitized, it'll get a nice heat clean, and with the oxidizer in there, it'll clean those bottles up nice and crisp. Now, I've kind of played around with it a little bit. I've never found a residue or anything like that on the bottles. And I kind of like Ken Brown's theory in his video series. It's also on YouTube. If you're doing anything with homebrew, you got to be drinking homebrew, and I truly agree with that. We're going to go through the bottling process and cover some of the mistakes that I made along the way. We'll take our last hydrometer reading, and today we're finishing off the Honey Cream Ale, which was a kit beer. Keep in mind this series that I put together was a kit beer series. We're not starting from a grain process on down. We're doing this merely from a kit standard. Kit beers are nice because they're put together for the beginning brewer, and you can get a nice finished product out of it that's a lot of fun to enjoy with your friends and family. And we'll be back and going through the bottling process. Okay, it's been, like I said, about 15 days, and one of the things we need to do is take a hydrometer reading before we bottle to make sure. A little out of sequence here with the fermenter. And what we ended up with is a hydrometer reading of 1.022. It's very important that your wort is at 60 degrees when you take your reading, otherwise you've got to adjust. This is at 68, so I'm going to adjust to 1. So I probably got 1.023, which is the finishing gravity of the beer per the kit. Again, we're brewing kit beer, and so we're going to stay with what the kit standards are. I did check it 2 days prior, and the fermentation process is completely stopped. And that's what you want to mostly check for. Is you want to make sure that once you reach your finishing gravity after a couple of days, it stops. So typically what I'll do is a day or two before what the projected finishing date is on that per the kit, I'll go ahead and take a reading on that. Next we're going to move the bottle. Alright, we're coming to you with the final chapter of the brew making process right before we go to the bottling. We fermented the beer. It's been about 15 days approximately. And if you look right on the side of the rim, you can see where the fermentation, the foam rose up. I've got approximately 5.5 gallons in this bucket. And what that's going to do, it's going to give me 50 bottles of beer. I've pretty much found if I go to this line right here, I get 50 bottles of beer. We want to brew a case and have a couple extras to check our carbonation in our beer that I'll pull out and check periodically throughout the process. You want to take your priming sugar, which is pretty much a corn sugar. It's a finer sugar than your cane sugar than you get from the store. So we'll clip that off. We're going to add that to our priming tank, which is down here. And what I do is I put this in beforehand, so as the wort that is now fermented goes in, that is now our beer goes in. It'll help mix with this. As always, sterilize everything. Basically what we're doing is we're transferring this right into our priming tank. The sugar that we added is going to give the carbonation for the beer when it's in the bottles. And that's what's going to give you the nice crisp pop when you open your lid. So we'll transfer this beer out of our fermenting tank, and we'll get back with you on the bottling process. And here's the part that we've all been waiting for. We're getting ready to bottle our beer. We've taken and mixed our priming sugars together. It's all ready to go to start the carbonation process. You want to kind of go easy when you do this because you'll get a good foam out of there. And basically you fill your bottle up till it's right before the top there. It's going to leave a little bit of an air space, allow the carbonation process to happen, and we don't want too much. A couple different types of bottle cappers that are out there, and I've got two different examples. I happened to pick one up from a good friend of mine that bottled beer a long time ago, and so he gave this to me. It was pretty nice of him to do that. There's a standard press type model. The other model that you usually get with most of your kits is a hand press type model. Work very simple. Your bottle caps that you get are usually plain or generic. You can get some that have different lettering and stuff, but what you want to look for is the gasket that's on the inside. Basically, you place the bottle cap on your bottle, seat it, make sure everything's nice and level, and come down firmly. You want to be sure when you do that that you don't press down too hard, because you actually could break that crown. And we bottled our first bottle of beer. And using the industrial size one, basically I press down to the lever, and you can feel that seat right over the bottle cap, and that's done as well. And that's beer bottling 101. We'll place those in our cardboard containers and it'll log our beer. Again, we want to try and achieve that temperature range of about 68 to 70 with this beer. We'll probably let it sit for about 4 days, and that'll be good enough for a carbonation process. One other thing that I wanted to kind of impart to you before we closed out is the Beginner's Guide to Beer Making. And it kind of goes through the history of the beer, the different types of beers that are out there that you can brew, has some simple recipes, explains how to figure out your alcohol content that's in your beer. Kind of just gives you an overall education on how to do it, and it's where I've got a lot of my knowledge from. I hope this video series has helped you out. I've had a lot of fun doing it. Want to thank my family for putting up with me and helping me record all the videos. And if you're a beer brewer and you like doing it and making your own home microbrews, enjoy it, involve family and friends in it. It makes it a lot funner. And then as you progress through life and you up your skills, start doing your whole grain beering, and then maybe even growing your hops, which is where